El solo quería bañarse. Pero la hija del jefe apache salió convertida en su esposa. Dust clung to his clothes and sweat dampened the collar of his shirt. He had been traveling for days, moving carefully through forests, across open plains and along rocky trails. His journey had been long and tiring, and all he wanted now was a brief moment of relief, a simple chance to wash away the dirt and fatigue of the road. He had heard of a small river nearby, hidden among tall trees and soft green grasses. Its waters were said to be clear and cool, a quiet sanctuary away from the noise of any nearby settlements. He approached it slowly, careful not to make sudden noises that might disturb the wildlife. Birds chirped softly in the trees, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind was the only sound that accompanied him. He paused at the edge of the river, breathing deeply and letting the calmness of the scene wash over him. The sun reflected off the water, creating tiny sparkles that danced across the surface. For a moment, he felt a peace he had not known in days. He carefully set down his pack, unbuckling it and removing the heavier items. The cool air brushed against his tired skin, making him shiver slightly as he removed his shirt. He looked around to make sure he was alone, confident that this secluded spot would offer him the privacy he needed. He stepped into the shallow water, feeling it lap gently against his legs. The relief was immediate. He leaned forward, letting the water flow over his hands and arms, washing away the grime of travel. The simple act of bathing became a kind of meditation. He closed his eyes, letting his mind drift, imagining that all his worries were carried away by the flowing river. Unbeknownst to him, he was not entirely alone. A pair of eyes watched from behind a thick curtain of trees. A young woman moved carefully, making sure not to disturb the calm around her. She was the daughter of the chief of a nearby Apache village, and curiosity had led her to the river that day. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw the man in the water. He was unlike anyone she had ever seen, tall, with a gentle manner that contrasted with the ruggedness of his appearance. She felt a strange mixture of caution and curiosity. She did not know why she had come so close, but some inner voice had guided her steps, and now she could not look away. The man, completely unaware of her presence, continued to wash. He splashed water lightly over his face, shaking his head to loosen his hair. He did not notice the sound of a branch bending softly nearby, nor did he hear the faint rustle of leaves that signaled someone moving through the undergrowth. His focus was entirely on the simple, peaceful act of cleansing himself after days on the road. Yet in the quiet of the wilderness, the river seemed to carry more than just water. It carried the possibility of change, the quiet beginnings of an encounter that neither of them could have predicted. As the young woman watched, a small stone slipped from her footing and fell into the water with a soft splash. The man froze, his head snapping up in alarm. His eyes scanned the trees, searching for the source of the noise. For a moment there was only silence, save for the river flowing steadily over rocks and pebbles. Then slowly he saw her, a figure partially hidden behind the trees, her dark hair shining in the sunlight. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat neither of them moved. The river, the trees, and the wind seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the moment to unfold. The man quickly covered himself with his hands, feeling a sudden rush of embarrassment. He had not expected an audience, certainly not one so close. The young woman stepped back slightly, realizing that she had startled him. Her own cheeks warmed with a mixture of embarrassment and curiosity. She wanted to apologize, but she also could not tear her eyes away. There was something honest and unguarded about the man's expression, something that spoke of vulnerability and sincerity at the same time. I did not mean to," she began softly, her voice barely audible over the river. The man relaxed slightly, though his hands still remained in front of him. It's all right," he said carefully. His voice was calm, gentle, and carried no hint of anger or fear. "I did not expect anyone here, but it's all right." They stood in silence for a moment, studying each other. The man noticed her curiosity, the way her eyes reflected a mixture of caution and intrigue. He also noticed her grace, the way she held herself even while being caught off guard. She in turn noticed his kindness, the way he tried to stay calm despite the awkwardness of the situation. There was a quiet understanding forming between them, fragile but undeniable. Finally, the young woman spoke again. "This river, it is near your path?" she asked, her voice steadying as she gained courage. "Yes," he replied. "I have been traveling for many days. The road has been long and hard. I only wanted to wash a little and rest." She nodded, understanding more than he could imagine. The life of travelers was difficult, and she knew the hardships of moving through the wilderness, even if she had never walked that path herself. "I see," she said quietly. "It is rare for someone to come here. Few strangers know this place." The man smiled faintly, feeling a little more at ease. "I am sorry if I have intruded," he said. "I meant no harm. I only wanted a place to rest and wash." "You have not harmed anyone," she replied, her voice softening. "But you should be careful. There are others who might not welcome strangers." He nodded solemnly. "I understand." There was a pause, and then he added almost as an afterthought, "But this place, it is beautiful. I am grateful to find it." She smiled faintly, feeling a connection she could not explain. There was something genuine about him, something that went beyond appearances and circumstances. She stepped a little closer, curiosity overcoming her initial caution, though she kept a safe distance. For the next few moments they spoke quietly, exchanging small words and gestures. The man asked her name, and she replied simply, offering only what she felt safe to share. They did not know each other yet, but already there was a fragile bond forming, a mutual recognition of humanity and honesty in a world that often demanded caution and wariness. As the sun continued to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in deeper shades of orange and pink, the man finished washing. He stood in the shallow river, letting the water flow over his legs, and felt a sense of calm that had been absent for many days. He knew he would have to move on soon, continue his journey, but he also knew that this unexpected encounter had changed something inside him. The young woman turned to leave, glancing back at him with a mixture of curiosity and something she did not yet name. The man watched her go, feeling a strange sense of anticipation, as if the river had not only cleansed his body but had also washed away a part of his solitude. Neither of them could know what the future held, but in that quiet moment by the river, a story had begun, a story that neither could have predicted, yet one that would shape both of their lives in ways they had not imagined. As the first stars began to appear in the sky, he packed his belongings, still glancing toward the trees where she had disappeared. The river continued its gentle flow, carrying the memory of their meeting into the night. He walked away slowly, feeling a mixture of relief, curiosity, and something else, something that felt like the very beginning of hope. Little did he know, this simple act of bathing in a quiet river would be the moment that set the course of an extraordinary journey. A journey that would bring him closer to a world he had never known, to a girl whose courage and spirit would leave an unforgettable mark on his life, and ultimately, to a bond that neither time nor circumstance could easily break. The wilderness stretched out endlessly before him, but he no longer felt alone. For the first time in many days, he carried with him the quiet promise of connection, a spark of friendship, and perhaps something more waiting to grow in the days to come. And so, under the golden light of the setting sun, the man continued his journey, unaware that this unexpected encounter by the river was only the first chapter of a story far greater than he could have imagined. The next morning, the man woke to the soft light of dawn spilling over the horizon. The events of the previous evening lingered in his mind. He remembered the river, the quiet peace of the water, and most of all, the young woman with eyes like dark pools, curious yet cautious. He wondered who she was, what life she led, and why fate had guided her steps to the same river at the same moment as his own. Though he had traveled through many lands, he had never felt a connection so sudden, so unexpected. The wilderness around him was alive with sounds. Birds chirped in a chorus, and the rustling of leaves signaled the morning wind weaving through the trees. He packed his belongings, but his movements were slower, more thoughtful. He did not want to leave this place entirely. Something about it called to him, something that went beyond the need for rest or shelter. Perhaps it was the memory of the girl, or perhaps it was the sense that this place held stories waiting to be discovered. Meanwhile, the young woman had returned to her village, her mind restless. She told no one of her encounter, though the thought of the man lingered in her heart. She knew she should be cautious. Her father, the chief, valued tradition and vigilance, and strangers were often met with suspicion. Yet she could not dismiss the warmth in his voice, the honesty in his eyes. She had felt no threat, only a sense of curiosity and wonder. She found herself thinking of him as she moved through her daily routines, collecting water, tending to small tasks, and walking through the outskirts of the village. Days passed, and the man continued his journey through the wilderness. He explored paths lined with wildflowers, crossed small streams, and climbed gentle hills. Yet, his thoughts often drifted back to the river and the girl he had met there. He wondered if he would ever see her again, if their paths might cross once more. Despite his uncertainty, he felt a pull toward that river, as if some invisible thread connected his steps to the place where they had met. One afternoon, he decided to return to the river. The journey was not easy. He had to navigate through thick underbrush and uneven terrain. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting playful patterns on the forest floor. Birds and small animals moved quietly, observing his passage. Each step brought a sense of anticipation, a quiet hope that he might encounter the girl again. He did not know what he would say, or even if she would be there, but he felt compelled to try. As he neared the river, he noticed signs that he was not alone. Footprints in the soft earth suggested someone had recently been there. The water sparkled under the late afternoon sun, just as it had the first time he saw it. He approached cautiously, keeping his senses alert. Then, from behind a cluster of trees, he saw her. The young woman stood near the riverbank, watching the water flow with a gentle, thoughtful expression. She had noticed him too, and her eyes widened slightly. Neither moved at first, as if they were both unsure whether this was real or a dream. He stepped forward slowly, raising a hand in greeting. "Hello," he said softly, careful not to startle her. "Hello," she replied, her voice steady yet tinged with curiosity. "You have returned." "Yes," he said with a faint smile. "I wanted to see this place again." "And I suppose I hope to see you too." His words were simple, honest, and without any pretense. She considered him for a moment. "I am glad you came back," she said finally. "This river, it feels safer when you are here." They spoke quietly, sharing small pieces of information about themselves. He told her of his travels, the long paths he had walked, and the many nights he had spent under the stars. She listened intently, asking questions that revealed her intelligence and curiosity. In turn, she spoke of her life in the village, of the traditions and duties she observed, and of her family. He listened with respect, careful to honor her experiences and the world she belonged to. As the days turned into weeks, their meetings became more frequent. Each time, they discovered new ways to communicate despite the differences in language and culture. Gestures, simple drawings in the sand, and shared tasks helped bridge the gap. The man learned to understand the subtle meanings in her expressions, the slight tilts of her head, and the changes in her tone. She, in turn, began to sense the depth of his character, the kindness, patience, and courage that lay beneath the surface of his rugged appearance. Their bond grew quietly, naturally, as they shared moments of laughter, wonder, and understanding. One afternoon, they sat together by the river, watching the sunlight dance on the water. The man picked up a small stick and drew simple shapes in the sand, showing her the path he had walked, the mountains he had crossed, and the rivers he had seen. She added her own drawings, marking the forests near her village, the trails she often walked, and the river that had become a meeting place for them. Through these drawings, they began to understand each other in ways words could not fully capture. Despite the growing closeness, both felt the weight of caution. The girl knew her father would not welcome a stranger so easily. She understood the importance of protecting her family and her community. Yet, she also recognized the sincerity in the man's heart. The man, too, was aware of the risks. He knew that any wrong step could lead to mistrust or danger. Still, neither could deny the growing connection between them, a connection that felt stronger with each passing day. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the river, the man spoke softly. "I have never met anyone like you," he said. "You are brave, clever, and kind. I feel lucky to know you." The young woman looked down, a gentle blush coloring her cheeks. "And I have never met anyone like you," she replied. "You are patient, thoughtful, and honest. I feel the same way." There was a moment of silence, filled only by the sounds of the river and the evening breeze. In that quiet, they both understood that something important was beginning, a bond that went beyond friendship, beyond curiosity. It was a connection built on trust, respect, and a growing sense of care for each other. However, they both knew the challenges ahead. The man could not remain in the village without the chief's knowledge or approval. The girl had duties and responsibilities that could not be ignored. Yet, they resolved to continue meeting, finding ways to learn about each other while honoring the boundaries set by their worlds. Each meeting became a careful dance of closeness and respect, a lesson in patience and understanding. As days turned into weeks, small acts of kindness strengthened their relationship. The man helped carry water, collected firewood, and assisted with simple tasks around the village outskirts, all while maintaining a respectful distance. The girl, in turn, shared her knowledge of the land, where to find edible plants, which paths were safest, and how to read the signs of nature. Together, they discovered a rhythm, a way to bridge the differences between their worlds. Through their shared experiences, a quiet trust grew. The man learned to respect the traditions of the village, observing ceremonies and customs from a distance. The girl learned to see the world through his eyes, understanding the struggles and joys of life beyond the village. With each passing day, their connection deepened, rooted in mutual respect and genuine curiosity. One afternoon, the young woman brought him a small gift, a simple woven bracelet made from threads she had dyed herself. She handed it to him silently, and he accepted it with gratitude, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gesture. "I will wear this always," he said, fastening it around his wrist. "It will remind me of this place and of you." She smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting a mixture of pride and shyness. "And it will remind me of you," she said softly. As the sun set, painting the sky with shades of pink and purple, they sat together on the riverbank, watching the water flow. Neither spoke, yet words were not necessary. Their presence spoke volumes, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forming between them. It was a connection that would not be broken easily, a promise of friendship, respect, and perhaps something more in the days to come. The man left that evening with a light heart. He had found not only a peaceful place to rest and bathe, but also a companion whose presence brought warmth and hope. The girl returned to her village, her mind alive with thoughts of the man and the growing trust between them. Both knew the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, yet neither could deny the pull of their connection. And so, as night settled over the wilderness, a quiet story continued to unfold, a story of curiosity, understanding, and the slow, gentle growth of a bond that neither time nor distance could easily sever. Weeks passed since their first meeting by the river, and the bond between. The man and the young woman grew quietly, like a small seed taking root in the fertile soil of trust and understanding. Every meeting was carefully planned, always with an awareness of the world around them. Yet, even in the most careful moments, they could not hide the connection that was forming between them. Their conversations, laughter, and shared gestures had become a rhythm, a gentle dance that spoke louder than words ever could. But as their bond deepened, the shadows of caution grew longer. The young woman knew that her father, the chief, would notice the subtle changes in her behavior. He was a man of wisdom and vigilance, respected and feared in equal measure by his people. He watched over the village and the surrounding lands with a careful eye, ensuring the safety of all who lived there. Strangers were rare visitors, and any unexpected presence in the wilderness drew his attention quickly. One morning, while the young woman walked through the outskirts of the village, she felt her father's gaze upon her. He did not approach immediately, but she sensed the silent question in his eyes. That evening, as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, he called her to his side. His voice was calm, yet firm. "My daughter," he said, "I have noticed your frequent trips to the river. There is someone there, is there not?" The girl hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. She had been cautious all along, knowing the importance of her father's trust. "Yes," she admitted softly. "There is a traveler, a man who comes to the river. I speak with him sometimes. He is kind and honest." The chief studied her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he spoke, his tone steady but laced with authority. "You must be careful. The world beyond our village can be dangerous. Not all men are as they appear. How do you know his intentions are pure?" The girl lowered her gaze, feeling the weight of responsibility. I trust him," she said quietly. "He has shown me respect and he honors our ways. I have seen nothing but honesty in him." The chief nodded slowly, though a shadow of concern remained in his eyes. "Trust must be earned," he said, "and actions speak louder than words. I will observe. I will see if he proves himself worthy." The next day, the man returned to the river as usual, unaware of the chief's attention. He carried with him a quiet determination, knowing that his connection with the young woman was growing stronger, yet aware that it could not continue without respect for her world. They greeted each other with the same warmth and curiosity as before, and he shared small gifts he had collected along his travels: bright feathers, smooth stones, and herbs with fragrant scents. Each gift was offered with humility and respect, a silent message of care and admiration. Their time together was interrupted, however, when a group of villagers arrived at the river. They had been sent by the chief to observe the stranger, to test his intentions without causing alarm. The man noticed their presence immediately and stepped back, careful not to startle anyone. The young woman quickly explained, "They are friends. You have nothing to fear. They only wish to understand." The villagers approached cautiously, their eyes studying him, assessing his demeanor. He bowed slightly, showing respect, and spoke calmly. "I mean no harm. I only wish to speak and share with your friend here." One of the villagers stepped forward, speaking in a firm but measured voice. "Why do you come here, stranger? What is your purpose?" The man paused, choosing his words carefully. "I travel to see the world, to understand it, and to meet its people. I have found a friend here, someone who has shown me kindness. That is my purpose, to honor that kindness and to learn from it." The villagers exchanged glances, recognizing the sincerity in his voice and actions. They could see the truth in his eyes, the honesty in his words. Slowly, their expressions softened and they nodded, allowing him to continue his meetings with the young woman. Despite this small victory, challenges remained. The chief had set his own tests, observing from a distance how the man conducted himself, how he respected the river, the land, and the customs of the village. Each action was noted: the way he avoided harming plants and animals, how he listened carefully, and the patience he showed in learning the small details of life in this world. The man soon realized that his connection with the young woman had become more than a simple friendship. He felt a deep admiration for her courage and wisdom, and a growing sense of protectiveness. He wanted to prove that he was worthy not only of her trust, but also of the respect of her father and her people. Every day, he made small efforts to show that he was honorable, reliable, and mindful of the ways of the village. One afternoon, as they walked along a narrow path near the river, the man paused to help her across a small stream. His hands were steady, his voice gentle as he guided her. "Take my hand," he said softly. She accepted it without hesitation, trusting him completely. The chief had observed many such small gestures, noting the care and respect in every action. Later, as they sat by the river, the young woman spoke softly. "My father watches us. He tests everyone, even you. He is cautious because he must protect us." The man nodded, understanding. "I respect him," he said. "I want him to see that I am honest and that I only wish to honor you and your people." The girl smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and pride in her eyes. "Then you must be patient," she said. "Trust takes time, but it can be earned." Days turned into weeks, and the man continued to demonstrate his character. He learned to follow the village customs, helped where he could, and treated everyone he met with respect. Slowly, the chief's skepticism began to fade. He observed how the man interacted with his daughter, how he treated the land and its people, and how he conducted himself with honesty and humility. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, the chief approached the man directly. There was no anger, only a calm authority. "You have shown patience and respect," he said. "You have honored my daughter and my people. I have watched you carefully. You are not like others who pass through our lands. You have proven yourself worthy of our trust." The man bowed his head, grateful for the acknowledgement. "Thank you, Chief," he said sincerely. "I only wish to show respect and to honor your ways. I never meant to cause worry or harm." The chief studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I see the truth in your words and your actions. Continue to honor our customs, and perhaps one day you may be more than a guest. For now, know that you are welcome." The young woman watched silently from nearby, her heart filled with relief and joy. She had hoped that the man's sincerity would be recognized, and now it was. She knew that the path ahead was still uncertain, but this acknowledgement was a significant step. Their connection could now grow with a sense of safety and respect for the customs that had once seemed a barrier. In the following days, the man and the young woman continued their meetings by the river, but now with a quiet sense of approval from the chief. Their bond deepened further, built on shared experiences, trust, and understanding. They learned from each other, discovering new ways to communicate and support one another. Each day brought small moments of joy, laughter shared over a playful gesture, quiet conversations about the land, and the simple comfort of each other's presence. Yet, both remained mindful of the world around them. The wilderness was beautiful, but it was also unpredictable. They respected the river, the forests, and the animals that lived there. Their meetings were careful, deliberate, and always filled with mutual respect. It was a balance of trust, caution, and the quiet excitement of discovering something extraordinary in a place that seemed ordinary at first glance. Through patience, honesty, and courage, the man had not only earned the respect of the chief, but also deepened the connection with the young woman. What began as a simple encounter by a river had grown into a relationship built on understanding and care, bridging two worlds that had once seemed so separate. And as the sun set each evening, casting long shadows over the river and the land, they knew that this was only the beginning. Challenges would come, but together, they had proven that trust, respect, and sincerity could overcome doubt and fear. The path ahead remained uncertain, but for the first time, they faced it with hope, confidence, and the quiet joy of knowing that something meaningful had begun. The man had now earned the quiet respect of the chief and the approval of the villagers, yet he never allowed himself to become careless. He knew that trust was a gift, fragile and precious, and he treated it with the utmost care. Each day, he continued to visit the river, though now he was no longer merely a visitor or a stranger. He had become part of a delicate rhythm that connected him, the young woman, and the life of the village itself. The young woman felt a mixture of relief and happiness. She no longer had to hide the meetings or fear her father's disapproval. But she still approached each encounter with thoughtfulness, careful not to let her emotions override her sense of responsibility. The man noticed her care, her caution, and admired it deeply. He had grown to respect not only her courage and curiosity, but also her wisdom and understanding of the world around her. Each day, he felt a stronger connection, a deeper understanding of her heart and mind. Their conversations grew more meaningful. They shared stories of their pasts, his life on the road, the places he had seen and the struggles he had faced. She spoke of her family, the traditions of the village, and the lessons her father had taught her. They learned from each other, exchanging knowledge, ideas, and perspectives that neither could have discovered alone. Their laughter became a familiar sound by the river, a symbol of the bond that had quietly grown over time. One afternoon, as the sun warmed the riverbank, the man and the young woman decided to explore the forest beyond the river. It was a place they had both seen, but had never fully explored together. Hand in hand, they walked slowly, stepping carefully over roots and stones, feeling the earth beneath their feet. Birds flitted from tree to tree, their songs filling the air with a sense of calm and wonder. The man showed her how to identify edible plants and medicinal herbs, while she shared her knowledge of animal tracks and the signs of changing weather. Together, they discovered a harmony between their worlds, learning and appreciating the land as both explorers and caretakers. Their friendship had grown into something deeper, though neither had yet spoken the words aloud. There was a silent understanding between them, a bond that went beyond mere companionship. The young woman found herself thinking of the man at all hours, wondering where he was, hoping he was safe, and imagining the next time they would meet. The man, too, felt a quiet joy at the thought of her, a warmth that lingered long after he left the river. The chief continued to observe quietly from a distance, as he always had. He had watched their interactions, noting the respect, care, and honesty that the man consistently displayed. It was clear that the young woman had found a kindred spirit, someone who valued her as more than just the daughter of a chief. Slowly, the chief's mind began to soften further. He could see that this man, though from another world, was sincere and honorable. He was no threat, only someone who had earned trust through patience, humility, and consistent good deeds. One evening, as the golden light of sunset bathed the river in warm hues, the chief approached them. The man stood respectfully, waiting for the chief to speak. The young woman, too, felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. This was the moment she had hoped for, a chance for her father to acknowledge the bond they had formed. The chief spoke, his voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. "I have watched you both," he said, addressing the man directly. "I have seen your actions, your patience, and your respect. You have proven that your intentions are honorable and that you are willing to learn and adapt. For this, I am grateful." The man bowed his head humbly. "Thank you, Chief. I only wish to honor your ways and your daughter. I have no desire to cause harm, only to learn and to show respect." The chief nodded, a small smile touching his lips. "I can see that. You have shown courage, honesty, and humility, qualities that are rare and precious. My daughter is fortunate to have someone who treats her with such care and respect. I welcome your continued presence here, and I will trust you to honor the bond you have formed with her." The young woman's eyes filled with quiet joy, and she reached for the man's hand. He held it gently, a reassuring grip that spoke of understanding and shared happiness. For the first time, they felt a sense of freedom, a release from the tension and caution that had colored their interactions for so long. The chief's blessing, even unspoken in formal terms, was a profound acknowledgement of their connection. In the days that followed, their time together became even more meaningful. They explored further into the wilderness, learning from each other and from the land. The man helped with daily tasks, gathering firewood and assisting with small chores. The young woman taught him the customs and traditions of her people, explaining the significance of ceremonies and the meaning behind rituals. Each lesson brought them closer, deepening their understanding and respect for one another. The villagers, too, began to accept the man as part of their community. They observed his consistent behavior, his kindness, and his willingness to learn. Children played nearby as he showed them simple games from his travels, and elders watched with quiet approval. Slowly, the man became more than just a stranger. He became a friend, a valued presence in their lives. One afternoon, as they rested by the river, the young woman spoke softly. "I feel that we are learning not just about each other, but about ourselves," she said. "You have shown me patience, kindness, and courage. I have learned to trust not only you, but also the possibilities that life can bring." The man nodded, his eyes reflecting the sunlight on the water. "And you have shown me understanding, wisdom, and a way to see the world differently. I am grateful for your guidance and for the bond we share." As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the riverbank, they sat quietly together, holding hands and enjoying the simple beauty of the moment. They did not need words to express their feelings. Their presence, their gestures, and the shared silence were enough. It was a connection that had grown steadily, rooted in mutual respect, trust, and genuine care. Their story began to spread quietly through the village. The elders spoke of the stranger who had earned the chief's respect, and the young woman's courage and wisdom became a quiet source of pride. The community began to see that the bond between them was not a threat, but a bridge, an example of how understanding, patience, and respect could unite two worlds that had once seemed far apart. One evening, as the sky turned deep shades of purple and pink, the chief approached them again. This time, he spoke directly to the young woman. "I see that your heart has chosen a path," he said, "and I trust that the man you have chosen is worthy. You may continue to meet freely, and I give my blessing for your bond to grow. Honor each other, honor our ways, and the future will be brighter for both of you." Tears of quiet joy filled her eyes. She reached for the man's hand, and together they bowed in respect to her father. The chief nodded, satisfied, and walked away, leaving them to enjoy the peace and freedom that had once seemed so elusive. From that day on, the man and the young woman spent more time together openly. They explored, learned, and shared their lives in a way that was both respectful and joyful. Each day brought new lessons, new discoveries, and new moments of connection. They laughed together, worked together, and grew together, their bond strengthening with every passing moment. Even the natural world seemed to reflect their growing harmony. Birds sang more brightly, the river flowed gently, and the trees swayed as if in quiet celebration. The wilderness, once a place of solitude and caution, had become a setting for trust, learning, and the quiet beginnings of love. And as the days continued to pass, the man and the young woman knew that their journey together was only beginning. They had overcome challenges, earned respect, and built a bond that was strong, resilient, and filled with hope. The river that had first brought them together had become a symbol of their connection, a place of learning, laughter, and quiet understanding. Their story, once a simple encounter by the water, had blossomed into a remarkable tale of trust, patience, and the gentle growth of love. And as they held hands by the riverbank, watching the sun set behind the trees, they understood that their journey had just begun, and that together they could face whatever the future might bring. With the chief's blessing and the village's quiet acceptance, the man and the young woman felt a sense of peace they had never known before. What had begun as a chance encounter by the river had grown into a bond of trust, respect, and love. Each day brought new moments of joy, discovery, and understanding, and the two of them embraced the life they were building together. The villagers continued their daily routines, yet now the presence of the man was woven naturally into their lives. He helped with chores, gathered firewood, and learned even more about the traditions and customs of the community. The young woman guided him patiently, teaching him the significance of each ceremony, the meaning behind every ritual, and the way of life that had been passed down for generations. In return, he shared stories of his travels, the lessons he had learned, and the wisdom of the world beyond the village. Together, they created a bridge between two different worlds, built on mutual respect and genuine care. The river, their first meeting place, had become a symbol of their connection. Each morning, they would visit its banks, watching the water flow, listening to the gentle songs of birds, and speaking softly to one another. They laughed, learned, and sometimes simply sat in silence, letting the comfort of each other's presence speak for itself. The bond between them was growing stronger every day, built not only on love, but on the understanding that trust and patience were the foundations of any meaningful relationship. One morning, the young woman suggested that they take a walk through the forest, deeper than they had ever ventured before. The man agreed, eager to explore and to spend time together. They moved slowly through the trees, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of the natural world around them. Birds flitted from branch to branch, and the sunlight created patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. Along the way, they discovered a small clearing filled with wildflowers, their colors vibrant and alive. It was a peaceful place, hidden from view, and it felt as though it had been waiting just for them. The man turned to her, taking her hands gently in his. "I have traveled many miles," he said softly, "and I have seen many places, but this being here with you feels like home. I have found something more valuable than any treasure I have seen, your trust and your heart." The young woman looked into his eyes, feeling the depth of his words. "And I," she said quietly, "have learned that the world is bigger and more beautiful than I imagined. But the most important discovery is the strength and kindness I see in you. You have proven yourself worthy of my trust and my heart." They embraced, the forest around them holding a quiet witness to the bond that had grown between them. It was a moment of pure connection, a moment where words were no longer necessary, and their feelings were expressed in the gentle clasp of hands and the warmth of shared presence. The villagers soon prepared for a celebration, a ceremony to honor the bond between the man and the young woman. It was not a hurried event, but a gathering filled with meaning, tradition, and respect. The chief had announced that the man would be formally welcomed into the community, and the villagers came to offer their blessings. The river, which had brought them together, now became the backdrop for a new chapter in their lives. On the day of the celebration, the man dressed in simple but respectful attire, a symbol of his understanding and appreciation of the village's customs. The young woman wore a beautifully woven dress, its colors reflecting the earth, sky, and water. Her hair was adorned with small flowers from the riverbank, and her eyes shone with happiness and quiet pride. Together, they approached the river where the ceremony would take place, their hands intertwined. The chief spoke first, his voice carrying authority and warmth. "Today, we honor the bond between two souls who have found understanding, trust, and love in each other. You have both shown patience, respect, and courage. Your connection is a symbol of what can be achieved when hearts and minds are open to one another." The man and the young woman listened carefully, their hearts full of gratitude and joy. They understood the significance of this moment, not only as a personal milestone, but also as a demonstration of the harmony that could exist between different worlds, when approached with respect and sincerity. As the chief continued, the villagers gathered around, offering blessings in their own way. Some brought flowers, others small gifts of food or woven items, and children sang simple songs of happiness. The atmosphere was filled with a sense of unity, a quiet celebration of trust, respect, and the beginning of a shared life. The man spoke next, addressing the chief and the villagers. "I am grateful for your acceptance and for your trust. I have learned from this land, from its people, and most of all from the young woman who has welcomed me into her life. I promise to honor your customs, to respect this community, and to care for the woman I have come to love." The young woman followed, her voice steady and heartfelt. "I have found not only a companion but a friend, a teacher, and a kindred spirit. Together, we will walk forward with respect for each other, for this land, and for the people who have welcomed us. Our bond is built on trust, and it will continue to grow as we face the future together." The chief nodded, signaling that the ceremony was complete. He placed his hands together in a gesture of blessing, and the villagers echoed the movement, creating a wave of support and unity that embraced the man and the young woman. It was a moment of triumph, of acceptance, and of joy. From that day forward, the man and the young woman lived openly as partners, their connection a source of inspiration and harmony for the village. They continued to explore the wilderness together, learning from the land and from each other. The river remained a place of reflection, laughter, and quiet conversation. Every day brought new opportunities to grow, to understand, and to strengthen the bond that had begun so unexpectedly. They also took time to contribute to the community, helping with tasks, teaching new skills, and sharing stories from their respective worlds. The man introduced simple ideas and tools he had learned in his travels, always careful to respect the traditions of the village. The young woman guided him, ensuring that every new lesson or technique was in harmony with the customs and values of their people. Together, they became a living example of cooperation, understanding, and shared purpose. Even the natural world seemed to celebrate their union. Birds sang in harmony as they walked through the trees, the river flowed gently with a sense of continuity and calm, and the forest seemed more alive than ever. It was as if the land itself recognized the bond that had grown here, nurtured by patience, respect, and love. Years passed, and the man and the young woman continued their journey together. They faced challenges, as all people do, but each difficulty was met with the strength of their partnership. They relied on each other's wisdom, courage, and understanding. Their love was not born of convenience or chance alone. It was forged in trust, shaped by respect, and strengthened by shared experiences. As the seasons changed, so too did their lives. They celebrated harvests, shared festivals, and welcomed new members into the community. The bond that had begun by the river continued to grow, spreading a sense of hope and connection throughout the village. Children learned from their example, elders found comfort in their respect for tradition, and the land itself seemed to thrive under the care and attention they both provided. In quiet moments, they would sit together by the river, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The man would often recall the first day he had come to wash in the river, unaware of the young woman watching from the trees. The girl would remember her own curiosity and hesitation, the moment she had first stepped closer to speak. They would smile at the memory, knowing that what seemed like a small, simple encounter had become the foundation of a life filled with meaning, love, and shared purpose. Together, they had built a life that honored both their worlds. They learned from each other, celebrated their differences, and embraced the shared experiences that united them. Their bond was a quiet triumph of patience, trust, and understanding, a story that began with a single river and grew into a life full of connection, respect, and joy. And so, the man who had once only wanted to bathe in a quiet river found not only a companion but a partner for life. The young woman, who had approached the river with curiosity and caution, found in him someone who respected her heart, her family, and her world. Together, they faced the future with hope, strength, and a love that had been carefully nurtured from its very beginning. Their story, once a fleeting moment by the river, had become a lasting testament to the power of patience, respect, and sincere connection. It was a story of trust earned, bonds formed, and love that grew naturally, gently, and unshakably. And in the quiet of the river, where their journey had begun, they continued to walk together, side by side, hearts aligned, ready to embrace every new day as partners, friends, and companions in life's extraordinary adventure.